Since humans discovered how to plant and grow crops some 12,000 years ago, man has flourished and humanity has grown and come to dominate our planet. Experts agree that it was agriculture that made human civilization even possible. Naturally, agriculture itself would not be possible without reliable, predictable rainfall. Since the dawn of civilization, mankind has attempted to manipulate the rain falling from the sky. From human sacrifice and rain dance ceremonies to the seeding of rain clouds, man has always tried to find ways to control the weather. But is it possible that a 21-year-old man serving time in a Pennsylvania prison has found a way to control rainfall? In today's episode, we will look into the strange case of Don Decker, the real Rain Man. In January of 1983, 21-year-old Don Decker was serving a one-year jail sentence for possession of stolen property at the Monroe County Correctional Facility in Pennsylvania. On February 24, 1983, Don Decker's grandfather, James Kinshaw, had passed away. Don was granted a furlough so that he could attend the funeral and spend some time with his family. But what Don did not tell anyone was that his grandfather regularly abused and mistreated him since he was a child. While others mourned the passing of James Kinshaw, Don was glad his grandfather was gone, and deep down inside he felt a sense of calm and relief. The funeral proved to be quite uncomfortable for Don as he sat and listened to loving statements made by his family regarding his former tormentor. After the funeral, Don stayed at the house of Bob and Jeannie Kiefer, who were friends of the family. After arriving at the Kiefer household, Don Decker went upstairs to relax a bit before dinner. Even before he reached the top of the stairs, Don felt a strange chill go through his body and became quite disoriented. Don quickly fell into a trance-like state. The Kiefers went up to check on Don, and he told them that he was having visions of a scary old man wearing a crown. The Kiefers helped Don back onto his feet and walked him back downstairs so they could sit down to dinner. It was then when they noticed the water dripping from the walls and the ceiling. It was practically raining inside the house. Thinking that a pipe had burst, the Kiefers called their landlord, Ron Van Wy. Ron quickly came over to the house to inspect the pipes. However, the area that was leaking had no pipes. Ron Van Wy was at a loss to explain why the walls were leaking. When they looked over at Don, he was again in a trance-like state. As the evening went on, the dripping kept getting worse. Not sure what else to do, the Kiefers and Ron Van Wy called the police. Within an hour, Officer John Bauhan and Officer Richard Wolbert of the Stroud Area Regional Police Department arrived on the scene. As the two officers entered the living room, they were met by a strange mist in the air. They saw drops of water moving horizontally from one wall to the other. Within a few minutes, the officers were completely soaked. The two officers could not explain where the water was coming from. Officer John Bauhan stated, "I suddenly felt frightened and began to shiver. There is nothing that can explain what happened in that house." Officer Bauhan and Officer Wolbert requested that everyone leave the house and wait at the pizzeria down the street. The Kiefers and Don Decker, who was still in a trance-like state, left the house, and the landlord, Ron Van Wy, remained at the house. As soon as the Kiefers and Don Decker left the house, the water had stopped, and the house began to dry out. A few moments later, when they arrived at the pizzeria, water began pouring out of everywhere in the restaurant. Water was leaking from the ceiling, from out of the walls, and was even bubbling up from out of the floor. Pam Scarafino, the owner of the pizzeria, immediately called the plumber and shut down the restaurant. The Kiefers and Don Decker, who was still in a trance-like state, left the restaurant and went back to the house. The minute they exited the pizzeria, the water had stopped. Meanwhile, Officer Balhan and Officer Wolbert were still at the house trying to make sense of the situation. Once the water had stopped, the two officers decided to head back to the station and to file their report. Soon after the officers left the house, the Kiefers and Don Decker returned home. As Don Decker entered the house, the indoor rain began again, and all of a sudden, Don Decker felt himself levitate off the ground and was thrown violently against the wall. The Kiefers again called the police, and Officers Wolbert and Balhan returned to the home along with their police chief. Unable to find any cause for the strange occurrences, the police chief said that it was all due to bad plumbing issues and declared the case closed. Not at all satisfied with their chief's conclusions, Officers Wolbert and Balhan, along with Officer Bill Davies and Lieutenant John Rundle, returned to the Kiefer home the next day. All seemed peaceful upon their arrival, until Bill Davies placed a gold cross in Don Decker's hand. The cross began to burn Don's hand, and then suddenly the officers witnessed Don levitate into the air and was thrown against the wall with great force. Lieutenant John Rundle described what he had witnessed. All of a sudden, he lifted up off the ground and flew across the room with the force as though a bus had hit him. There were 3 claw marks across the side of his neck, which drew blood. I have no answer for it whatsoever, and I just draw a blank even today. Wanting to help and not knowing what else to do, the Kiefers' landlord, Ron Van Wy, called in a preacher to pray for Don. As the prayers began, Don's body began to convulse. After a while, though, a calmness seemed to come over Don. After the prayer session, the rain never came back to the Kiefer household, and the strange occurrences around Don Decker have appeared to stop, at least for the time being. And Don seemed to have become himself again. Soon, Don's furlough was over, and it was time for him to return to prison. As Don Decker was sitting in his cell, Don began to think about the strange rain that seemed to follow him after his grandfather's funeral. He began to wonder if it was some type of curse cast upon him by the man who tormented him as he was growing up. Don also began to wonder if he could somehow control this power and make it rain. Don Decker closed his eyes and began focusing on the rain. To his surprise, water began dripping from the ceiling and from out of the walls of his cell. After several minutes, there was an inch of water on the floor of his cell and was spilling out into the corridor. Soon, a passing guard noticed the water. The guard thought that Decker had intentionally flooded his cell by clogging his toilet. The guard was questioning Decker when he noticed water dripping from the walls and ceiling. The guard didn't believe Decker when he claimed that he was creating the rain with his thoughts. The guard sarcastically suggested that Don should make it rain in the warden's office. Don Decker said that he would try. Later that day, the guard went into the warden's office where David Keenhold was serving as warden of the Monroe County Correctional Facility. The guard was shocked to see that Keenhold's shirt was soaking wet. The guard explained to the warden what was going on with Don Decker and Howie suggested that Don should make it rain in the warden's office. Keyhole stated that this was around the time that the ceiling in his office began dripping. Strange, since it hadn't rained in weeks. The guard and David Keenholt went down to Don Decker's cell when they saw that the water was still coming down on him. They had already checked the plumbing and discovered that there were no pipes leaking. They were at a loss to explain where the water was coming from. Not knowing what else to do, Warden Keenholt decided to call in Reverend William Blackburn. When Reverend Blackburn came in to talk with Don, he found that Decker was again in a trance-like state. Blackburn pulled out his Bible and began reading from it. After only a few minutes, the rain stopped and Don Decker appeared to be calm and at peace. To this day, the mysterious rain has never returned. What could possibly explain the mysterious chain of events that befell Don Decker? Was it just a series of plumbing issues that caused it? How does this explain the trance-like state and the levitations? Could it be possible that Don's grandfather, James Keyshaw, reached out from the grave to torment his grandson one last time? To this day, Don Decker has never again experienced the strange occurrences that happened almost 30 years ago, and this mystery remains unexplained. This concludes today's episode of The Paranormal Report. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. The team at The Paranormal Report really appreciates your support.